Thanksgiving was supposed to be just another quiet family dinner. Turkey, mashed potatoes, a few awkward jokes from my uncle, and everyone pretending to get along. But that year everything changed. One slip of the tongue turned a peaceful holiday into a full-blown storm. My sister, who hadn't seen me in months, found out, completely by accident, that I had over $15 million sitting in my account. You could feel the shift in the room instantly. Forks paused midair, conversations stopped, and every single pair of eyes turned toward me. First it was just shock. Then came the questions. Where did it come from? How long had I been hiding it? Why hadn't I told anyone? I could see the curiosity in their faces, but behind it, something darker started to creep in. It didn't take long before the friendly smiles faded and the real tension kicked in. The tone of the dinner turned cold. Suddenly it wasn't just about being happy for me. It became about what I owed them. My parents, usually quiet and reserved, brought up old stories of sacrifices they made. My cousin, who rarely even texts me back, hinted at a business idea he just happened to be working on. Even my sister, who had stumbled upon the truth, wasn't shy about her expectations. I felt the room close in as they all looked at me, not as family but as opportunity. What started as a festive meal was now a pressure cooker of entitlement and guilt. And just when I thought it couldn't get more uncomfortable, someone stood up and said something that changed everything. That's when the real drama began. It was my aunt of all people who stood up. She tapped her wine glass with her fork, smiled at everyone like she was making a toast, and then casually said, "Well, now that we know he's rich, maybe it's time we talk about what's fair." I couldn't believe it. The room went completely quiet, except for the sound of someone slowly setting down their drink. I looked around hoping someone would laugh and brush it off, but no one did. That silence was louder than any argument. Let me back up for a second. I'm not some overnight millionaire. The money came from years of work, smart investments, and honestly, keeping my head down while everyone else in the family was busy trying to impress each other. I never shared much about what I was doing. It wasn't a secret. I just didn't think anyone would care. I wasn't flashy. I didn't show up in a luxury car or wear anything expensive. But apparently, the moment people find out you have money, you become a different person in their eyes. Growing up, we didn't have much. We were one of those families where everyone had to chip in. My parents worked long hours and we all shared everything. So, I understood why money felt like such a big deal to them. But that night, it felt like all the love, loyalty, and years of shared struggle were suddenly being weighed against a dollar sign. The worst part? My sister, who had always been my closest ally in the family, didn't say a word to defend me. She just sat there, eyes locked on mine as if waiting for my reaction. That's when I knew this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about something deeper and far more dangerous. My cousin Jason was the first to really push things. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and said, "Look, man, you know I've been trying to get my tech startup off the ground. A little seed money from you could change everything." His tone was casual, but his eyes weren't. There was this hunger in them, like he just spotted his big break sitting right across from him. I didn't even get a chance to respond before my dad chimed in, reminding everyone how he'd taken out a second mortgage years ago to help me through college. It was true, but that loan had been paid back with interest. Still, the way he said it, you'd think I owed him my entire life. Then my mom, always the peacemaker, tried to soften things. "We're not saying you have to give anything, sweetheart. But think about what it could mean for the family. A new house for your father and me. Maybe help your sister get back on her feet." That's when I finally glanced at my sister. She didn't look away. There was no guilt in her face, just a cold kind of calculation, like she was weighing her next move. The air was thick with quiet expectations, unspoken accusations, and buried resentments suddenly rising to the surface. I felt like I wasn't sitting with family anymore. I was surrounded by people lining up with invisible ledgers, ready to cash in. And what hurt the most was knowing this wasn't about need, it was about entitlement. Not one of them had asked how I was doing, what I'd been through, or what it took to get here. It was all about the money. And then out of nowhere, my sister finally spoke. And what she said made everyone stop breathing. She looked directly at me, steady and calm, and said, "I didn't just find out about the money tonight. I've known for weeks." The words dropped like a bomb. The room froze. I blinked, trying to process what I just heard. "What?" I asked, voice tight. She leaned back in her chair and folded her arms. Yeah. I found the paperwork when I came over to your place last month. You left your laptop open. She said it like it was nothing, like snooping through my files and keeping it a secret was perfectly reasonable. Everyone started talking at once, but I couldn't hear a word. My heart was pounding too hard. My sister, the one person I thought I could trust, had been sitting on this knowledge for weeks. That's when it hit me. She was the one who let it slip tonight. It wasn't an accident. She wanted the rest of the family to know. And the timing? Thanksgiving, when everyone's gathered and emotions run high. It couldn't have been more calculated. But why? That question was spinning in my head until my uncle spoke up. His voice low and tense. Wait. If she knew weeks ago. Then who told Uncle Ray? Everyone turned toward the end of the table where Uncle Ray sat, suddenly looking uncomfortable. I didn't mean to say anything, he mumbled. I just thought, since we're family. That's when I realized it. This wasn't just a one-night mess. There had been conversations, whispers behind my back. People had been planning, scheming long before I walked through that door tonight. And now what started as a dinner had turned into something else entirely. A quiet war over loyalty, secrets, and millions. And I hadn't even seen the worst of it yet. I stood up. I had to. My hands were shaking and my voice almost cracked, but I said it anyway. So this whole dinner wasn't really about family. It was about how to split my money without me even being part of the conversation. No one denied it. They just stared. Some with guilt, others with that same quiet expectation. I looked at my sister. You broke my trust, I said. You came into my home, dug through my things, and then used it to turn everyone against me. She didn't say anything. She just looked down, like maybe now she felt the weight of what she'd done. That's when I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small envelope. I knew someone had been in my files. So I made a choice. I changed everything. New accounts. New beneficiaries. I even hired someone to look into who else knew. The color drained from a few faces around the table. And just so we're clear, I continued, anyone who's been involved in pressuring me, anyone who thought they could guilt or manipulate their way into my money, is off the list. The room exploded. Voices raised, chairs pushed back, people arguing over who said what and when. But I was done. I stepped away from the table and started to leave. Just before I walked out the door, I paused and turned. There was one person who didn't ask for anything. One person who actually warned me what was coming. I pulled out a second envelope and handed it to my younger cousin Ava, the shy, quiet one who'd sat silently through it all. That's for your education. Use it well. And as I walked out into the cold night, I felt free. But the final twist? That wasn't all the money. Not even close. The cold air outside felt cleaner than anything I breathed at that dinner table. For the first time in years, I felt in control, not just of the money but of my own boundaries. I didn't disappear from the family after that night, but things changed. I stopped trying to prove anything. I didn't explain, didn't justify. The people who showed their true colors at Thanksgiving stayed distant. And that was fine. Sometimes distance is peace. Ava sent me a thank you letter a few weeks later, handwritten and sincere. She said she'd always looked up to me, not for the money, but because I worked hard and stayed kind. That meant more than anything. I offered to mentor her through her studies. She was the only one who saw me as more than a bank account. My sister and I didn't talk for a long while. Eventually she reached out. Not to ask for anything but to apologize. It wasn't perfect and I didn't pretend it didn't hurt. But I listened. We're rebuilding slowly, honestly. Looking back, I realized that Thanksgiving wasn't a loss. It was clarity. When money enters the picture, it doesn't change people, it reveals them. I used to think success meant being able to provide for everyone, but I've learned that protecting your peace is part of that success too. The truth is, financial freedom means little without emotional freedom. And sometimes saying no is the most generous thing you can do, for yourself. So no, I didn't lose a family. I just finally saw it for what it was. And with that clarity, I walked into the next chapter of my life. Not bitter, not broken, but stronger. And the rest of that money? Let's just say, I have plans. Quiet ones.